Right, picture this. You bin it in the middle of a race, not through any fault of your own. And the very next thing that happens is your own boss going in front of the cameras and publicly hanging you out to dry. That is exactly what happened to Jorge Martin at the MotoGP Hungarian Grand Prix. But one man was not having it. That man is Jorge Lorenzo, five-time world champion, who came out swinging and said, "This isn't right." In this video, we are covering three things. Why Martin's crash at Balaton Park was not purely his fault, why Lorenzo laid into Massimo Rivola, and how Marc Marquez pulled off one of the most jaw-dropping comebacks we have seen in years. Grab a brew, settle in, and let's get into it. Let's start with what actually happened on track. Balaton Park, Hungary. The race has barely started, the pack is still bunched together. Then at turn one, bang, massive pileup, and the name everyone kept pointing at, Jorge Martin. But Lorenzo was quick to provide some crucial context. According to him, Martin was not being reckless. The bike suddenly became unstable under braking. Most likely the front wheel locked or the rear lost traction. Because of that instability, Martin had to release the brakes earlier than he wanted. The result? He carried too much speed into the corner and had no way to scrub it off cleanly. From there, it was pure dominoes. Martin collected Fermin Aldeguer, then Bezzecchi got swept up, followed by Di Gianantonio, and finally Raul Fernandez. 5 riders involved, 4 of them done for the day before the race had properly begun. What Lorenzo was most insistent about was this: he did not brake later than the other riders. Something happened with the bike. That distinction matters enormously. As someone who has personally sat on a MotoGP machine at close to 300 kilometers per hour, Lorenzo knows better than most that 1,000 things can go wrong in the blink of an eye. Now this is where it gets properly spicy. After the crash, Massimo Rivola, the CEO of Aprilia Racing and, crucially, Martin's own boss, went straight to the media and effectively blamed Martin in public. Your own gaffer, the bloke who signs your contract, going on record to air your business before the dust has even settled. Lorenzo was not about to stay quiet. He said plainly and firmly, Martin should not have been humiliated the way Rivola did it, especially by someone who has never been a MotoGP rider. That last bit is a pointed dig and a deliberate one. Rivola is not a former racer. He has never been in that situation himself, strapped into leathers, hurtling into a corner at racing speed, surrounded by 20 other riders, all fighting for the same piece of tarmac. To hammer the point home, Lorenzo reached back into his own career. At Laguna Seca in 2011, he lined up on the grid fully expecting his traction control to be active. It was not. He was launched off the bike at turn 1. A 5-time world champion made exactly that kind of error. The message is straightforward. Mistakes are human. What is not acceptable is a team boss rushing to publicly blame his own rider before anyone has had the chance to properly review what went on. And honestly, it is a lesson that goes beyond motorsport. Whether you are on a racetrack or in an office, do not be the first one to pile in on someone who has just gone down, especially if you have never been in their shoes yourself, right? Let's shift to something that genuinely had the whole paddock rubbing their eyes in disbelief, and this might be the most remarkable story of the entire Hungarian weekend. A few weeks earlier, Marc Marquez had a serious crash at Le Mans. Serious enough to require 2 operations back-to-back. He then pushed himself to line up at Mugello, clearly not yet right physically. His performance there showed it. He was nowhere near his best. 5 days later at Balaton Park, pole position, sprint win, race win, dominant from start to finish. Lorenzo himself said, nobody expected that in just a few weeks he would recover so quickly and win so convincingly. Lorenzo also broke down exactly why Marquez was so strong at this particular circuit. Balaton Park is a stop-and-go layout, heavy on left-handers, with only 2 right-hand corners. That suits Marquez's riding style down to the ground. He has always been more comfortable and more aggressive through left-hand bends. Lorenzo noted it should also suit Acosta, but ultimately Marquez was on another level entirely. The highlight of the race was the battle between Marquez and Pedro Acosta. Acosta tried a block pass on a right-hander. Marquez responded on a left-hander, his territory. Lorenzo analyzed the move in proper detail. Marquez went for a tight V-shaped line into the apex, while Acosta took a wider entry to carry more speed to the next left. That created a gap that Acosta briefly used to get ahead, before Marquez wound up his rhythm through the middle stint and pulled back through cleanly. This is where it gets interesting from a title fight perspective. After Hungary, Marquez takes maximum points. Bezzecchi and Martin, the two riders ahead of him in the standings, score nothing. Lorenzo described it as the biggest possible point swing you could realistically hope for in a single weekend. But Lorenzo was also careful to add a note of caution. What happened to Martin and Bezzecchi this weekend could just as easily happen to Marquez next time out. MotoGP seasons are long. Acosta had a DNF through engine failure at Montmeló. Nobody is immune. What has changed, though, is the way Marquez approaches a race weekend. The reckless young charger who would throw everything at it regardless of consequence is gone. At Hungary, he chose the medium tire and rode conservatively through the opening laps. He only started to properly push once he had a feel for where the race was going. The results speak for themselves. As Lorenzo put it, I think if he could not beat Pedro, he would have been content with second place. That is a significant statement. Marquez has grown up. Championship points matter more than individual race glory. One more thing Lorenzo touched on, and this one is genuinely mouthwatering. From 2027, Pedro Acosta joins Marquez at the Ducati Lenovo factory team. Lorenzo called it a meeting of two generations, two of the most ambitious, aggressive, and competitive riders on the grid under the same tent, sharing the same data, racing the same machinery. He compared it to the Valentino Rossi and Lorenzo partnership at Yamaha, or the Marquez-Rossi era. Two fighters who simply will not accept being beaten by the bloke in the next garage. Lorenzo also made an interesting parallel between Acosta's current situation at KTM and Casey Stoner's time at Ducati between 2007 and 2009. The one rider capable of extracting the true potential from a machine that nobody else could tame. Just like Marquez during his later Honda years from 2021 to 2023, doing extraordinary things with machinery that was working against him rather than with him. And Marquez himself has already said, fortunately, Pedro is not on a Ducati. Well, starting next year, they will be sharing one. That storyline is going to run and run. So to wrap things up nice and tidy, Martin's crash at Balaton Park was not simple recklessness. There was a technical issue that destabilized the bike, and Lorenzo, as someone who has actually ridden at that level, was the right person to say so. Rivola had every right to be frustrated, but publicly humiliating your own rider before the full picture is clear is not the way to handle it. There is a time and a place, and that was neither. Marquez's comeback in Hungary was not luck. It was the product of extraordinary physical resilience, mental strength, and a more measured, experienced approach to championship racing. Now it is over to you. Who do you think was most at fault in the Balaton Park pileup? Was it Martin, a mechanical issue, or just one of those things that happens in motorsport? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you got something out of this video, smash that like button so more MotoGP fans can find it. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next breakdown. Until next time, keep it throttle, keep it real.